Yeah, welcome to this memorial event commemorating the life and works of Amjad Jaimoukha. How many of you have read anything that he has published? That's quite a lot. How many have actually met Amjad? There's a few, yes. Thank you very much. Can you see, or can we turn down the light a little bit? Okay. When Amjad Jaimoukha died in the beginning of October, it was a shock to many, including many here in this room. Many of us has gotten used to receive interesting information on Circassian culture and history from Amjad on a daily basis through his Facebook site called Circassian Culture and Folklore. Obviously, this is nothing compared to the loss his family has had to cope with. I have been in touch with his widow, who was pleased to hear that we will honor him here today. She, as well as their son, often took part in helping Amjad in his work. They have not yet decided upon the potential future of the websites and other parts of his unpublished works. Obviously, Amjad's passing is a huge loss to the so-called Circassian world in general, as well as to all interested in the Caucasus. He was in the middle of a large task, but still, we have to be thankful that he managed to find the time to search for so much information and to publish it as well. Amjad was born in 1964. He was 53 when he died, and he was born into a family of Kabardian Circassians originating from the Kabardian parts of the North Caucasus, which is the easternmost part of the Circassian areas in the North Caucasus. After the final forced exile from the Caucasian homeland in the mid-19th century, his ancestors was evicted to what is today Jordan, and that they arrived in Jordan in the late 1870s, where they took part in founding what is today the city of Geras, just north of Amman, as did other Circassians take part in the founding of modern Amman. Amjad grew up in a family that was very conscious about Circassian heritage and tradition, including the use of Circassian language. His grandfathers had managed to keep central documents, including diaries from the 19th century, which most of Circassian families in exile had actually lost. All of this inspired Amjad to continue this task. His father was one of the first who managed to go to the homeland in the 1960s and 70s, where he reconnected with the family and tried to establish a so-called family tree to reconstruct his ancestry, which was quite difficult in that time when there were so many documents missing. Then, when it came to the period of glasnost in the late 80s, in the last phase of the Soviet Union, Amjad was himself ready to continue the work that his father had begun. In the following years, Amjad collected a large number of documents in different languages, in different libraries, archives, and in private households. All of this became the basis of his work as a writer and as a publicist through the last 20 years. It was from the beginning an ambition of Amjad to contribute to the enlightenment of Circassians all over the world, and especially to present much of the information and knowledge found in Circassian and Russian language to the diaspora. partly because most in the diaspora were not able to understand these two languages, and partly also because so many people in the diaspora had lost most of the knowledge on their family background in the Caucasus. He wished to contribute to bridge the gap between the homeland and the diaspora as soon as this became possible after the fall of the Soviet Union especially. What I find so impressive when looking at the combined output of Amjad Jaimoukha is the magnitude, the diversity, and the quality that he managed to present through all his work. Now I will shortly mention some of his key works. No, that's not this one, but his first focus was actually on Circassian language, which there will be a panel on tomorrow, where there were, and the Circassian language, he hoped that he could contribute to restore it as an everyday language in the homeland as well as in the diaspora, which was quite a significant ambition. The challenges to the future of the Circassian language is one of the issues that will be discussed later at this conference, where it obviously would have been very interesting to have the input from Amjad. His first publication came out in 1997 and was a Kabardian English dictionary. Then I'll move on to, I won't go into all of his publications, but some key works, and this is for most of us, especially those of us who are not Circassians, a key publication. The book called The Circassians, a handbook it's called, and it came out in 2001, and for many of us a standard work of reference. Here Amjad managed to present an overview of all aspects of Circassian culture and history. And everything that he has done since that, more or less, at least in the form of books, has actually been to take chapters from this book and then elaborate on the theme of one chapter into a whole book. So, and in this book, Amjad notes on the task of the book that this is the story of a nation at a crossroads, deprived of its will for so long and still dispersed and lacking a cohesive ideology. It is groping its way in the modern world. Will it be regenerated and become a member of the world community, or will it remain in the shadows? Will the Circassians ever stand up and be counted? Quote, end of quote. These were also some of the questions that Amjad had hoped that this conference would be able to discuss and to examine at depth. Unfortunately, we will miss the voice of Amjad in these discussions, but fortunately we are many here today to continue these discussions. In the spirit of Amjad, we will try to collect the papers that will be presented during this conference, and hopefully we will be able to publish it as a publication. Now I will just show you a few slides before we... I visited Amjad in 2010. Which was a typical story, you can say, of the Circassian diaspora conditions. I was invited to speak at a conference. It should be say it's Amjad on the left, and we are in Jerash, north of the city, north of Amman, where they were just building a new Circassian cultural center, which is the building in several stores you can say behind. It was not finished at that point. It is now. The head of the cultural center is in the middle, and the guy on. But I was invited to speak at a conference, but the conference was actually cancelled in the last minutes. But by then I had everything, I bought my tickets, and I had made arrangements to make interviews when I was there anyway. So I went anyway, and the whole story behind why the conference was cancelled was actually because Russia put pressure on the government of Jordan, because they feared that this conference could be the first step leading into Circassian separatism. So instead, I managed to see Jerash, and I have to show the others. Just one more slide to see. Also, this is Amjad in his family home, where he was one of the books that he has published is on Circassian culture and folklore, and there he deals a lot about, one of the traditions is a link to hospitality. And obviously, Amjad showed that very clearly, that he was a brilliant host. I had a whole flat just under his own flat for my week there. And at one point, he invited a group of Circassian VIPs, or Circassians elders, actually. And then he was the perfect host, as I have seen many other instances, and he served them all, as you're supposed to do. And we had lovely Circassian food for dinner. Of course, there is in Jordan a Circassian catering services with a lot of the same dishes that you mentioned, Zainel. And so I just wanted to show this photo of Amjad. And before we end today, I would like to invite Sufian Zhemukhov to the stage right now. And then we will, one of the things that Amjad did was that he collected and translated a lot of songs and poems. Often these poems were then distributed both in the diaspora and in the homeland, and then ended up being performed at stages by professional actors and singers and so on. And Sufian is actually a relative of Amjad. You can maybe say in a short words how how that comes. And then Amjad will proceed to read a poem that Amjad has. Yes, Sufian will proceed to read a poem that Amjad has translated, and he will do so both in Circassian and in English.
Thank you. Amjad's father, as you mentioned, he visited the Caucasus, and but before that he wrote 3 letters. And the elder of our clan received those letters. They were not addressed to anybody in particular. They were addressed just to the local administration, officials of the village, and then the officials gave them to the leader of our clan. And then he visited the Caucasus himself, and he was looking for his ancestors, and there was gathering not only Jaimoukha in our village, but from other villages, including the biggest, the village where the most Jaimoukha live in Zayukova. So that was quite an event when he came there. And as you mentioned, Amjad himself, he took interest in Circassian culture in many ways, and one of the ways was translating Circassian poems and songs into English. And here is one of his translations. It is a famous song which like almost everybody in Kabardino-Balkaria knows. The song is called My Circassian Language. The poet who wrote it is Boris Jetkhov, and Amjad translated it. So I will read 2 excerpts from the poem, and we'll translate each other as soon as I read it. Qatasat si bkhja siyana disha kushaq waradja qaza ushasha sabsawa si'ar arsia nabzaj siya digabzaj. Sit beside me, my gilded mother, and whisper to me my cradle songs. My mother language is part of my soul. That's my mother tongue, my mother language. Pshedjij nahullam vagor pollalri, qwale bzuubzer mahor pshnabza. Bzum yabzadacher svoj siyanabza, ar siyanabzaj, siyadghebzaj. At dawn, the stars scatter away. The chirp of birds turn into a violin tune. The bird's beautiful song sounds to me like my mother's language. That's my mother's tongue, my Circassian language.
Thank you very much. I think we will end here and see each other at coffee. Or do you have any announcements? So now we're going on to coffee and poster session.
So thank you very much for this, Lars. I would like to say just that perhaps you have noticed that we have a recording here. So this session has been recorded. If you would like to go back to it or you would like to share it, there will be a link at our RUCAR portal for the video. Thank you.
Good to see you. Yeah.